Okay, so I think we are recording again.
Are you still sharing screen?
Um,
I think
can
it has
you
dropped.
can you?
All right, okay. All right, okay. So thank you so very much. And good evening once again. Yeah, so I'm just going to take you through the ESG Toolkit, which is basically steps into transitioning to become an impact enterprise. So the process through which a company gets to move from a traditional enterprise all the way to an impact enterprise. And doing that presentation, of course, my name is Peter Chintu. Yeah, so over to the next slide, Christian. Yeah, so this is basically the container, the investing container, which I believe Christian has already talked about in his presentation. But anyways, so we're looking at moving from let's say traditional investing all the way through that spectrum to traditional philanthropy, where in most cases under traditional investing, the focus is basically on market return. And then, of course, moving further away from that, we have the below market return and eventually loss of capital as we go towards traditional philanthropy. Yeah, Christian, you can actually help me with the next. All right, okay. So the impact investing toolkit for impact enterprises is actually a guide, like I had mentioned, on which a company can get to move from a traditional enterprise to an impact enterprise. And of course, as for IP, we have gathered so much information from different sources, and of course, this information serves as guide for impact investing as we undertake this process. And of course, some of the sources are the impact. Then we also have SOPACT, as well as GIIN, which is the Global Impact Investing Network. Then we also have sources from the World Economic Forum, as well as our own material, the 4IP Group. All right. Yeah, so under the ESG Toolkit for impact enterprises, or transitioning to become an impact enterprise, we have actually 7 steps. And these 7 steps are actually what we are calling the impact investing framework. Now, of course, the major source of this is the impact, as you can see. So the first step is actually exploring, which we were actually doing in the first presentation. So a traditional enterprise, or an enterprise that wishes to transition into an impact enterprise, will get introduced to the whole phenomenon or concept of impact investing. So you get to discuss what is impact investing, what are some of the opportunities that exist within the field of impact investing, let's say for an enterprise which wishes to transition and become an impact enterprise. So that is basically what was going on in the first part of the presentation, which was conducted by Christian. And the second part is, the second step is reflecting. So you get to reflect on some of the issues around impact investing and how, let's say, an enterprise can get to become an impact enterprise. Then we also have the issue of assessing this impact. And then the fourth step is actually strategizing. And then the fifth is becoming investment ready, which is very key and important for each and every enterprise that is looking to transition and become, let's say, an impact enterprise. Because if your impact is going to be bigger, then it's better for you to have quite a lot of people who are backing you, and of course that makes a greater conversation. And then the other step is impact measurement. And lastly, which is the 7th step in the impact in the ESG framework, is optimizing. So I'll just go over these briefly and try to discuss them. So that is in the next slide. Christian. All right, so stage one, or the first step, which is the exploration step, where an enterprise gets to learn about impact investing. What is impact investing? So under this one, there's this is great, and this is very important because it serves as a guidance for an impact enterprise. And of course, the major source of information for this is the impact. Then we also have the World Economic Forum, and then we also have principles for responsible investing, as well as the Global Impact Investing Network. And then at the same time, under the same stage or state of exploration, we also get to look at the in-house a priori knowledge of, let's say, the Zambian impact investing enterprise landscape. So under this one, we get to ask questions like how much knowledge is it that exists, for instance, within Yatu Foods about the whole topic or concept or phenomenon of impact investing, which I guess we'll get to go over in the Q&A session. And at the same time, under the exploration stage, we'll also get to look at some of the networks for impact enterprises that an enterprise can actually get to benefit from, as well as learn on the best way to transition and become an impact enterprise. So for instance, under the National Advisory Board for Impact Investing, they have a working group for demand for capital. And we also have a number of different networks. Like I believe Yatu Foods Limited is actually a member of the Zambia Association of Manufacturers. So you can actually get to learn one or two things about impact investing and how to create impact. At the same time, we also have the Private Sector Development Association, which has been active in Zambia. I believe these are some of the networks that an enterprise can get to learn about impact investing from. So in terms of conferences, so there was actually the ICA, the Impact Capital Africa Conference, which was held in Zambia, and then 4IP Group, of course, in conjunction with Innovate for Water, as well as the Women's Entrepreneurship Access Center, WIAC, will actually be hosting the Zambia Entrepreneurship Summit. And then 4IP also co-hosted the AFSIC event, which actually focused on impact investing. And at the same time, there was also the Innovate for Water event. So these are some of the conferences that an enterprise can get to learn about impact investing from. Then in terms of other sources of information about impact investing, there's actually a million of books and online sources of knowledge, including webinars. Like from our perspective, IP and IPA's perspective, for instance, we get to host the Investor Circle webinars, which simply get to talk about impact investing and how an enterprise can get to tap into that field. Thank you, Christian. And then the second stage is actually about reflecting. So reflecting. So the second stage within the ESG framework looks at identifying motivations as well as objectives regarding environmental and social outcomes. So here, under the second stage within the ESG framework or ESG Toolkit, we get to look at key issues for the enterprise, like Yatu Foods, to consider and discuss in order to establish its impact objectives. And some of these issues are, for instance, reason for considering attracting impact investments. So what are your reasons for considering the attraction of impact investments? We also have social and environmental issues. of relevance to an impact enterprise. Then we also have issues that we also get to look at issues that have already been addressed, let's say by Yatu Foods through entrepreneurial and enterprise development activities. Then we also get to look at some of the issues that are shared across intra as well as extra enterprise stakeholders. So yeah, so some of these are some of the key issues, of course, including perspectives on the role of social as well as impact enterprise. So here we get to just go into detail and discuss what Yatu Foods perspectives are on the role of social of a social and of course the social and impact enterprise. And then we also get to look at, most importantly, we also get to look at some of the trade-offs and constraints that the enterprise is willing or not willing to accept. Like Christian's presentation mentioned, for instance, to say some asset managers would not invest, let's say, in an impact enterprise because of all these regulations which exist with regards to reporting, let's say frequent reporting about the impact that let's say you are creating with that capital that has been invested in. So some of these are the issues that we get to consider under the whole reflection stage. Thank you very much. And then, of course, we also get to, on this I believe should be the third, we get to determine what assets, we get to determine what assets are owned by the enterprise and who's making decisions about the acquisition of assets as well as the expansion within that business. Then we also get to have a review of assets and liabilities that are on the balance sheet. At the same time, we also get to look at the specific needs that determine how these existing assets are currently being utilized. And then we also get to identify some of the legal and operational constraints that exist within the business environment for that impact enterprise, like Zambia. And then we also get to assess how the state regulations reflect the analysis and how it should be carried out. At the same time, we also get to determine the best matchmaking entry points. So here we have, for instance, a number of activities like pitching in person or on deliberate platforms like the Investor Circle webinars, which we get to host. And at the same time, we also get to look at some of the intermediaries that can help in determining the best matchmaking entry points. And then under this stage, we also get to see what investments from the continuum and how best to help reach the identified impact objectives while meeting the financial needs for a particular enterprise. Over to the next slide. Okay, so now we actually get to the third stage within the framework, which is deepening. So deepening will focus on developing an immediately actionable impact fundraising strategy, as well as raising impact capital. And in the end, under this stage within the ESG Toolkit, we get to gather and analyze performance and impact data to measure the outcomes, which is very important. So the third stage, which is deepening, will firstly look at reviewing, let's say, the in-house capacity and tools to manage inward impact investments. So we'll get to ask questions like, does Yatu Foods have competent members of staff who can manage inward impact investments? Do they have a good enough CFO, accountants, and so on and so forth? And then we get to the second phase of establishment. So we get to establish a framework for managing these ESG issues. And then there's also consideration at play. So we get to consider establishing an impact enterprise policy statement. Yeah, so in Zambia, there isn't so many big corporations. I think they should be one as at now. Yeah, they should be one as at now. Then under the same consideration, we also get to look at how actionable the prepared impact strategy is and whether it is aligned with Zambia's SDG objectives, needs, as well as constraints. Because we need to know that even when we get to come up with this impact strategy, it is one that is going to be supported by the Zambian business environment. Then there's also an issue of determining what sources of impact, the optimal sources of impact investments. So we have, for instance, the IIX impact partners, as well as so many different crowdfunding platforms. And then under the same deepening stage within the framework, we also get to ascertain the capacity of current employees or service providers that are going to work with an enterprise that wishes to become an impact enterprise. In this case, service providers which exists, there's 4IP and IPA, of course. Now we are going to be dealing with unique aspects of impact investments, so as we help a particular enterprise to become an impact enterprise. And then we also get to include ESG considerations in the company strategy, as well as annual business plan and its action plan. And at the same time, under inclusion, we also get to include ESG considerations in the investment agreement itself. Thank you very much, Christian. Over to the next. Yeah, and then of course we are still looking at deepening. We also seek to find and use existing industry standards for impact measurements, of course. And then we have under this, we have the IRIS Plus, as well as the impact measurement, the impact measurement framework. And then we also get to look at the streamlining process of data collection and analysis. And under the same deepening, we'll also get to determine if the objectives that were set, the ESG objectives that were set, have been made. And then we also get to determine what data is required to better assess the performance of those objectives and how to get that data. And then we also get to consider getting independent impact assessments, ones that are not going to be biased. Thank you. Over to the next slide. So under the fourth stage within the framework, we get to look at leading, which is basically revising the strategy to improve the outcomes. Yeah, so under this stage, we get to assess if impact capital or impact investments could better achieve objectives and meet the needs. So there's going to be that assessment. And then we also get to decide if maybe an enterprise should raise their ask, that is the amount of capital that they are looking for, so that they can have a bigger or larger impact. And then we also get to determine if the investment type sought should be modified. Is it going to be private debt? Is it going to be private equity, or it's going to be a mix of the two? And then under the same stage, we'll also get to see if it's possible to learn from others when iterating the impact strategy. So is it possible to learn from some of the efforts or activities that are carried out by the Zambia Association of Manufacturers, or some that are carried out by the Private Sector Development Association, and so on and so forth. And then we also get to include the ESG considerations at exit. So for some enterprises, for some investors, impact investors, as well as enterprises, they get to have these agreements to say, okay, so after so many years, let's say 5 years of having invested into this company, they can get to, let's say an enterprise can get to buy the existing shares from the shareholders, so that it owns the business entirely or wholly, or the investors themselves, they can get to agree to say, after 5 or 7 years of having invested and grown a particular enterprise, we are ready to simply buy out and sell our shares. Over to the next. Okay, so what are some of the 4IP Group opportunities for services, let's say particular to impact investments? So there's 3 types of services. Number 1, which is to provide information. So under this one, of course, Christian did something, introduction to impact investing. It is basically falling under the exploration stage within the ESG Toolkit for becoming an impact enterprise. And then, of course, the second service is creating strategies. So 4IP Group will get to help an impact enterprise or an enterprise which wishes to become one, get to create strategy. So under this one, there'll be setting up an investment. So basically, how best are we going to reach out to the rightful impact investors? So setting up investing capital raising strategy, as well as creating a framework for integrating ESG issues. And then the third is the actual implementation of the ESG framework or ESG issues, as well as its objectives. Yeah, over to the next slide. All right. So I should mention, as you noticed, I didn't get to exhaust all the 7 steps within the ESG toolkit for transitioning to become an impact enterprise, because by the end of the day, this is not a syllabus that should be followed religiously, but in order to use it effectively, we need to be able to understand where does a particular enterprise fall, let's say along this path. Where are they, and how best can we get to help them transition and become an impact enterprise? So the next steps, of course, would be looking at what type of services to focus on. Is there any additional information that is going to be required in order to decide on this? And of course, the other question, most important question for an enterprise like Yato Foods is, do you want to have an in-house, let's say, ESG framework ready, let's say, to be implemented for all prospective investors, and co-create, let's say, a bespoke framework? And then the other important step would be discussing some of the responses, of course, of Yato Foods Limited to the ZAM Impact Enterprise survey that we have been rolling out. And then, of course, we can't forget about the case studies as well as the training exercises, because by the end of the day, we need to know that this information is going to be put to use and perfect optimal use. Thank you so very much. Christian, over to the next slide. So Mr. Chapotamo, I hope you are ready to just go through some of hello, Christian?
Yeah, I just think before we go, because this is confidential information, so before I stop the recording, I can see that our colleagues from Impactpreneur Africa Limited are there. Maybe before I stop the recording, so that people in Lusaka who are watching this video, when they see you on the street, they know who you are. Maybe you would want to just very quickly, one sentence each. Calvin, Hagar, Unique, you want to say a quick hello before I stop the recording of the introduction of the ESG Toolkit for Impact Enterprises? Well, this is a little bit improvising, so maybe they're not in a position to say anything. But if you want to say a quick hello, colleagues, before I stop the recording. If not, you'll get a chance next time.
Oh, they're all muted, by the way.
They're all unmuted, yeah. So they're probably doing something else at the same time. They're multitasking.
No, hi,
okay.
Christian. Hi.
Okay, that's Calvin is there. And happy birthday, Calvin. You see how dedicated he is. He's even with us here on his birthday.
So thank you so much, Christian, and thanks for this meeting. I guess from introductions, my name is Calvin. Of course, I reckon I have met Asha at one of the training programs. I remember that we had around investments.
It's a pleasure to meet you again, Mr. Calvin.
Good to meet you again, Asha. And it's so thanks for having me. I'm hopeful Unique and Hage will also respond as well. I've been with Christian and Peter for I would say it's 2 going on 3 years now. So it's been a long journey on impact investments, and I'm glad to see that the toolkit is getting very close to Yato Foods. This is exciting stuff.
Thank you very much, Calvin. Hagai, want to say a few words?
Yeah, sure. Good evening, Asha, and good evening, everyone. I've been following the presentations. I think I joined in a bit late, so it was when I had another meeting just before the call. But I guess we've met Asha, I think previously on our introductory call that we're doing.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. So I'm Hagai Chomba, and one of the partners at Entrepreneurs Africa, and I also support some. I'm also doing some work with the National Advisory Board for Impact Investment, which was mentioned actually partly in the presentation. And much of the work that we're doing at IPA and for IPA all feeding into really supporting impact enterprises access capital. So happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hagai. And the most solid pillar of IPA, Unique Piri. Will you say a few words, Unique? I hope you're not having dinner with your family as we speak. If not, we'll stop the recording here. Let us know, Unique, if you want to say a couple of words before I stop the recording, just as a brief introduction to the management team of Impactpreneur Africa Limited. Otherwise, he'll get a chance next time. Okay, I think Unique is occupied. She's just listening in, multitasking, as most strong entrepreneurial women are doing in Zambia. So let me stop here